The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
But right now I want to get to our guest. Like I said, he's no different, I feel, than any of our forefathers who sacrificed their time and a lot of times their lives to really bring this country forward. And I'm talking George Washington and the rest. They were patriots. There were people out there with no shoes during the winter. They had to eat their leather shoes to survive because they cared about what they were doing. They had conviction and they had character. And so many don't have that anymore. And that's why I'm really glad to have this gentleman as a guest tonight. And I really hope everybody supports him, gets behind him, rallying cry for what he believed in. Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, good evening.
Well, good evening, John. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, you're quite welcome, Colonel. I know there are certain things that we can't talk about because you're not formally discharged. But I'd like to get in, on your trial and your incarceration. And that was, I would imagine, the first time you've ever been in prison, correct?
Oh, yes, definitely. First time anything close is getting in trouble with the law. It was just I expected a lot worse, but I tried to use it as a valuable learning experience, and, it's turned out to open up some other doors for me, and I'm seeking out other directions of how to put that into a positive experience to me.
Well, I know that you're a doctor, and you refused to be deployed for reasons that I can get into later. I know you can't talk about it because you haven't been discharged yet. But what about your incarceration? What about the people that you met in prison? Where were you in prison at? What facility?
Well, I ended up within 2 days of being taken into custody out at the Joint Regional Correctional Facility out at Fort Leavenworth, and I did learn the facility had only been open for about 3 months prior to my arrival there, and it was a facility to take in military prisoners. Almost all of us were Army at the time that had sentences of 5 years or less. And then just down the road from us was the detention barracks at Fort Leavenworth, which is where the people with 5-year sentences and longer are housed.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about, or tell our listeners a little bit about the people you encountered in prison. What were most of them in there for, and how did they feel about being in prison?
Well, there was a large range of other inmates. I would say that I was just astonished at how non-threatening they were. We all had sentences of less than 5 years, so it was, mostly, if not, majority of nonviolent crimes. And, most of the inmates were looking for positive outlook of things. They wanted to seek out some schooling. They wanted to do productive jobs. They wanted to feel productive inside there. But this being a new facility, they had not really started up an educational program that was very robust, and most of the jobs were pretty menial tasks, just taking up time, and so there was a lot of inmates were looking for something to do. They were seeking out the library and reading all the books in the library, and we also had a very good religious media center, which a lot of people were seeking out for movies and books related to religion.
I understand you helped some of the prisoners. In what way?
Well, I was definitely the highest-ranking inmate there. There was a couple other officers, but I'm a quiet guy. I didn't want to try and, it's not a situation where you can use your rank at all. In fact, we have, privates that are guards, and they're, ordering you what to do all the time. But I did add my voice into trying to improve the educational process there, and I volunteered to teach courses from the first week or two that I was there, and shortly before I was released, we were finally able to get at least a math course that was kind of equivalent to a GED math course or a college preparatory course. And I think that was the start of them starting to do another math course and an English course to get ready for some college courses for the inmates.
Now, when you got, what was your sentence? How long was your sentence?
I was sentenced to 6 months, and then every month if we stay out of trouble, we're given 5 good conduct days off, and then for our employment, if we work 80% of the time during the month, then we pretty much get 1 day per month off of our sentence. So my 6-month sentence was essentially a 5-month sentence.
5 months. Were the other inmates aware of why you were there?
There was only a couple that knew right off the bat. Certainly several of the guards indicated that they knew, and even upon my reception there, several of the supervisory guards told me they knew why I was there, but it's a place that's under cameras and microphones all over the place, and people really aren't able to speak freely without the fear of being on a camera and tape recorded.
Wow, so it's like Big Brother watching you. Well,
it is
not too much different than outside the prison. Now, when you got out of prison, did you get a lot of support from people?
When I came out publicly about this, it was just kind of a firestorm of emails, and certainly after I got taken into custody, I arrived at the facility a little before Christmas, and I started receiving 10, 20, 30, sometimes more letters per day over the holidays, and just very touching letters from people, and people telling their stories about how scared they are that something like this is actually happening in the United States.
Yeah, now, you have certain restrictions, like I said at the beginning. How long will that be maintained? When will you be formally discharged?
Well, there's kind of 2 pathways. I can waive my appeals process, and the Army will discharge me and take the final sentence of a dismissal upon me as soon as they can finish the paperwork. I'm looking at appealing this also, and the appeals process could run 6 months to 18 months, or maybe even longer. And in that status, I would still be on active duty, but essentially on excess leave, and have to uphold my status as an officer to the military.
Okay. Colonel, we're coming up on break, and we're going to be getting into a medley by Sonny Turner. I think you remember the Platters. And if you'll hold on, we'll be right back after the break. If you'd like to call in, the toll-free number is 800-596-8191. If you want to call in and talk to a great patriot, and I'm talking somebody very few of us would do out there. I don't know if I would do it. Lose your rank, lose your pension. I don't know. I don't know too many people that would do it. But again, toll-free number is 800-596-8191, and call in, and we'll see you right after the break. Welcome back to America Betrayed. Going into the break, we had the great Sonny Turner with his medley of the Platters, and Marty Ballin, who was supposed to be on the show tonight. He has a new album out, or CD, I should say, called The Witcher. If you go to his website, www.martyballin.net, take a look at his website. He's got some tremendous music there. He'll be back on the show probably next week, and like I said, 2 of the greatest singers of all time, Marty Ballin and Sonny Turner. But before we get back to the Colonel, I'd like to bring in Marco. Marco is an associate of the Colonel's. And Marco, is there anything you'd like to fill in what the Colonel can't talk about that you can?
Absolutely, and thanks for having us on. Yes, one of the things he really can't discuss much is obviously his position, and that he still feels strongly about his actions. And as Jack Cashel said on the show yesterday, Terry has never specifically said one way or the other what Barack Obama's eligibility is. He just wanted to know. And, we still don't know, and people should be very concerned about that. Now, you mentioned earlier as well that Terry has made a huge sacrifice, and he has. And, since Obama released the supposed long birth certificate, the contributions to the Terry Lakin Action Fund just dropped off precipitously. We've continued to be able to provide some money for them. They've been using up what little savings they had remaining after the trial. And Terry has some opportunities for work, but none of it will start till September or beyond. And so I'm asking on behalf of Terry for people to go to terrylakin.com, that's LAKIN.com, and consider just making a small contribution, just at least for the next couple of months till he is employed, and we'll let you know when he's employed. And then the second thing that he probably won't want to talk about himself is this book that we're working on, and it is very exciting. Again, you can go to terrylakin.com. You can click on the big banner at the top of the interview yesterday with Jack Cashel. It's going to be a very exciting book, much different than many books in this space, with not only Terry's story, which itself is wonderful, but probably 18 to 20 vignettes of key people who have helped him and come alongside him, and anywhere from 6 to 8 extended essays on issues relative to this issue, as well as some art and humor of the issue. But of course, it isn't really that funny because it's a very serious issue. So again, appreciate you having Terry on tonight, and just asking those who are listening to please go to terrylakin.com, consider making a small contribution, read up. You'll see that he has done something extraordinary on behalf of this country. So that's what he won't say. So let's take it back to Terry.
Well, Marco, just one question. If the colonel is still active duty, don't they have to pay him? If not, isn't active duty without pay slavery?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if we call it slavery. It is interesting that he is still not discharged, as you said. He's not actually on active duty. He's on appellate leave. But what's kind of strange is he technically could be called back up if there was a national emergency. Yes, it is a kind of a strange situation. He has no pay. His pension was revoked. A few minor health benefits remain, but they will end. So basically, he's on his own and has to start over again. But he took a principled stand on behalf of the nation, and one that more people should take. It's a very, very complex situation, but really at its core is so simple. I think the public should be demanding from the Congress and Senate to get this issue resolved instead of having wasted so much time on it. But we're not wasting time because it's very, very critical. And Terry's right there at the core of this issue, and I'm pleased to be involved with this project.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot for the colonel. Like I said, I don't know many people that would do what the colonel has done. Now, as far as this long-term form birth certificate that came out, we know that's a total forgery, fraud. There were certain things in there that right off the bat a 5-year-old could figure out. But we do have some news. On the next hour, we're going to have Orly Tates on the show. Orly has got a subpoena, judge ordered a subpoena of Obama's long-form birth certificate, the original one that the health director said she saw a while back, the handwritten one. They have until August 3rd. I feel that this guy saying that he's going to cut off Social Security. I mean, there are people out there, that's all they depend on. And he says he wants to cut that off. I mean, come on. Well, right now, we've got a caller, William from Alabama, and we're going to see what William has to ask. And if the colonel can't answer it, Marco, I appreciate if you would answer it for him, okay?
No problem.
Yes, William, good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted Colonel Lakin to know that I'm one of his supporters and financially supported him during his trial. My question is he considering running for office? We sure need heroes like him.
Well, thank you, William. I never say absolute no to anything, but it's not in my near future right now. I hate being in the public eye. Really, I am a quiet, reserved person, and I enjoy being a team member. But if the opportunity arises in several years, then certainly I'll consider it.
And
Well,
John, let me
Lakin, I'll
interject.
be hopefully considered to be in your camp and would campaign for you and donate to your campaign run if you do it. I supported Duncan Hunter in his presidential bid, and we need good military men to watch over this country, just like George Washington.
Now, did you want to comment, Marco?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know where Terry's coming from, and he's correct. He is extremely quiet about what he's done. But I'll tell you, just listening to him over the last few months, I think he probably will run for office someday. So hang in there, and we'll see what happens.
God bless
Okay,
Terry.
William.
Yes,
William, does that answer your question?
it certainly does.
Okay, well, thank you for calling in and supporting a great patriot. Really appreciate it. Thank you, William.
And thank you for your program.
Oh, you're quite welcome. We need to get the truth out. You're not going to get it from the mainstream media because it's controlled media by various sources. I think you know who they are. But Colonel, you're a doctor. Do you plan on going into a private practice when all of this is done, or and like William said, possibly running for office? I think that would be a great idea. We do need honest people like you. There was when I worked in Washington, D.C., I only knew maybe 3 or 4 that were like you, that were honest. And believe it or not, a couple of them were doctors, but one was also Sonny Bono, who was an entertainer. He was completely honest. All he cared about was his country. And I just got the feeling that you're that type of person. I mean, I've seen pictures of you and your family, and boy, what a lovely family, and the sacrifices that they have to go through because, and just standing behind you, your beliefs. And I really have to applaud you. And I don't know anybody today that would do it. If anybody knows it, bring them forward. Sonny or John, if you know anybody that would make those sacrifices. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, but I just don't like somebody saying, hey, I'm going to cut off Social Security checks. I know old people out there that are barely functioning, and if their Social Security checks are cut off, they're done for. They have to eat dog food so they can afford to get their prescriptions out there, their medication. So I really don't like that. But Sonny, you got a question for Marco? Yeah, because the Colonel, there's certain things he can't answer. You got a question?
Well, I just want to know why they're penalizing this gentleman and this officer who served this country. And I didn't get the full understanding of why why he was penalized or sent to jail. I know that you have a right to speak up, and that's what America's all about. Even if you are in a uniform, I know that you're sworn to obey the military code. But looks like you're a gentleman that served with honor, and they're punishing you for some reason I don't understand. So,
Marco, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
I can answer it, and Terry can even answer this a bit too. But Terry, as you know, on a YouTube video, stated very clearly that he was going to disobey a direct order to deploy, and the charge is called missing movement, because when you order an army to go, it needs to go. And Terry chose to do that with the hope that the court-martial would allow discovery and would therefore would allow the issues and the facts about Obama's eligibility to come out. Instead, as those of you who followed the case know, all discovery was denied, and as it proceeded to the court-martial, Terry went without a defense. So did he do a chargeable offense? Absolutely. Should he have been court-martialed and put in prison? No, because the solution was so simple. And, of course, subsequently, as you mentioned earlier, John, about this long-form birth certificate, I mean, for months, even leading up to the trial, they just kept saying, all we have is this little short-form thing. And then, lo and behold, they come out with this long-form thing, and it, of course, is completely suspect. And so, the whole premise of Terry's case, of course, is just really unfortunate and really a problem. But nonetheless, there he is. He's served his time, and he's going to get on with his life.
And John, for you and your listeners too, I mean, Marco summarized that great. Except for the year and a half prior to my deployment orders, I had started a process of trying to ask the military internally, using a process called an Article 138 under the UCMJ, which is a complaint that you can file against your command, and it's supposed to be without retribution, but I tried to craft up these Article 138 complaints through 2 different chains of command, and the replies that I got just, were lacking. It made me lose faith in my leadership, and I also sought out congressional complaints, and all that the congressional leaders did was, just file those complaints over to the military, who gave me the same response. That, one response was that my complaint was addressed against President Obama, and he had no UCMJ authority over him, so therefore my complaint was deficient, and they didn't have to reply to it at all. Another complaint that I went through, another chain of command, was that the chief of staff of the Army was not in my chain of command, and he had therefore no obligation to answer my question. And I wasn't seeking out an answer for me. I was asking for them to just come out with a public statement saying that this problem is resolved, or that this is not a problem because of this. And when I sought out my congressional leadership, I met with several senior staffers, and I got a lot of nods of the head saying, we know there's a problem and we try to do something about it, but the media wouldn't gain traction with the media, so we didn't know what to do after that. And that just, that ate at me that something else needed to be done.
So what I'm hearing here is the Commander-in-Chief is immune to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Is that what they say?
That would be, of course, he's not really part of the military directly. He's a civilian side, but yes, of course, it was part of the problem. Is I think some friends of ours did a cartoon when Terry was applying for a medical license recently, and the list of items he had to do. And Terry, to just continue on with the employment process, you have to do like another 30 pages, right?
I did, yeah.
Right. It's just crazy. And I mean, that's important, but here we have the President of the United States, and the guy can't even, prove even a little bit that he's eligible. So yeah, the whole thing is just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening. I know a number of congressmen and senators. I'm just wondering if I contacted them and see what they can do. I know I've gotten the same song and dance up there. Either they're afraid to do anything, or they're part of the problem. Our whole government has been hijacked by these elements that are just insidious, absolutely insidious. Now, I've had Ted Gunderson on the show, former head of the FBI office in Los Angeles, and he just said it's all been taken over by the Illuminati, which really caught me by surprise, because I had investigated the Illuminati many years ago, and I wrote him off as some something like James Bond Spectre, but here was the former head of the FBI saying that they had taken over, and I'm just really definitely afraid of where our country's headed, and Obama's just a figurehead. I mean, he's being used, but like I said, when somebody threatens to cut off money to old people, that's all they have. I have no use for that person, none whatsoever. And I guarantee if he does that, there's going to be a really serious problem in this country, serious. And I wish people, these politicians, all of them, the Republicans, Democrats, they're no different. They're up there for themselves, stay in office, and that's why I'm fighting with the Sonny Bono thing, trying to get Sonny's body exhumed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was assassinated, because he was the same way as the colonel. He would not compromise his character, not his character, but his beliefs. He believed in this country, and he wanted justice, and and they kill them for it. Now, is anybody aware of the progress of the states that have made in the requirements for eligibility for the next election?
Well, each of the states that has tried, in one way or another, it has been thwarted, either on a technicality or it wasn't ratified or it wasn't signed by the governor. And it's really quite extraordinary because one of the things this whole issue has brought out, John, is that every state has laws regarding eligibility, as Maryland does, where I live and Terry lives, and yet there simply was no prescribed method for confirming eligibility. And it's amazing to me the states are even resisting this. We're talking about giving people fiduciary and legal responsibility at a federal and state level, and we don't really care if they are qualified and eligible. I think that is just ludicrous. And so people need to be bombarding their state legislatures on this.
Well, they have to. My concern is if he remains at such a president, that means a person like Arnold could get in there, and oh, God forbid. I mean, he ruined California, but you know, that means anybody can go into that White House. That White House was sacred for a long time. I mean, I know what our governments have done all in the past, going back to JFK and all the different assassinations, dirty work, and I would imagine the Colonel's seen some things happen. Colonel, where were you deployed? You were deployed over in the Middle East for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, my most recent deployment had been in 2004, 2005 to Afghanistan, part of the Operation Enduring Freedom, the fifth iteration of that. I was with a great unit, with a cavalry unit. We were in Kandahar for a little while, patrolling the whole province, and then we jumped out to the Iranian border and pretty much patrolled all of the western section of Afghanistan for a while.
Do the people want us there? Are they glad we're there, the people of Afghanistan?
We rolled around to several small villages throughout my whole stay there, and I like the people. I think they needed a lot of help. Certainly, they wanted a lot of help, but I'm not sure. They're a different kind of culture, that they don't understand freedom or democracy or the rights. They just have immediate needs at that time, and if you're there to give it to them, they'll take it. If you cut them off, then they're not going to be your friend tomorrow. So,
wow. Did you have any close encounters? And I'm not talking about UFOs. I'm talking about close combat.
I can say I didn't take any direct fire. There were several cases where our unit was certainly rolling into something that we thought was going to be bad, and there's several other near mishaps just in your regular duties of patrolling. But there were some potentially bad guys that we were out chasing out on foot several times, or we were out in remote areas with 4 vehicles, and considering we were going to get ambushed at any time. But my unit was particularly lucky, just missing that by several hours several times too.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad you made it through, because to me, you're one of a kind, Colonel. Like I said over and over, very few people would do what you do. You gave up your commission, you gave up your pension, everything, and I really hope, and like William said from Alabama, he hopes that you run for office. I hope you do, because the country needs people like you. I wish Sonny Bono was still around, because he was a great patriot. He cared about this country. That's all he cared about. So many of these politicians, all they care about yourself. Like you said, you went up and talked to them in Congress. They're not going to do anything they don't have to, and they're not going to rock the boat. But let's see if we can't rock the boat. I'm going up to D.C. In a short period and see what we can do. Maybe do something for you, Colonel, because you really are a great guy. I know you helped a lot of people out there. You probably helped a lot of people in prison, and also out on the field out there, being a doctor. I mean, My brother was in Vietnam. He was the first Air Cav LRPS. He was a medic with that group, and I know what he went through. So I really have to applaud you guys. You're out there defending us, but I hope that's the reason why we're over there, you know, to stop them coming here. Marco or Colonel, could you give your website one more time so people can go to your website, take a look, and also donate? I really feel that people should donate to you. You're not one of these fraudulent organizations out there, some of these Tea Party groups just asking for money. You really deserve it. You need it. And this, like I said, the next hour, Orly Tates, I hope she's going to be able to bring forward this true birth certificate. There is a subpoena out by a Hawaiian judge to provide it by August 3rd. If they don't, they're going to go to jail. So let's hope we can get to the bottom of it. So why don't you give your website? And
sure. The website is, the short form is just terrylakin.com, TerryLakin.com. It'll take you to the Terry Lakin Action Fund website, and there's tons of information there. There's backgrounder on Terry. There's all the radio shows we've done. There's a place to donate, all kinds of information, and we hope people will go and check it out.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.